Welcome, esteemed listeners, to our enthralling Hercule Poirot audiobook series, where the brilliant Belgian detective's little grey cells conquer the most devious crimes. Today, we plunge into Hercule Poirot's bloody Peril at End House, a gripping tale of seaside suspense, near fatal mishaps, and a crumbling estate hiding deadly secrets. Imagine, on the sun-drenched Cornish cliffs, Poirot encounters the enigmatic Nick Buckley, brushing off accidents that reek of murder, bullets whizzing past, boulders tumbling down, as threats escalate with blood-smeared warnings and a family curse whispering doom. The detective uncovers a web of jealousy, hidden heirs, and vengeful pacts. But when the final peril strikes, Poirot's masterful twist will leave you stunned. Settle in. The danger is just beginning. Chapter 1. The Shadowed Sanctuary. The Cornish coast unfurled like a painter's dream under the relentless summer sun, cliffs plunging dramatically into the turquoise sea that sparkled like 1,000 shattered sapphires. Gulls wheeled overhead, their cries a sharp counterpoint to the rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks below. Hercule Poirot, seeking respite from the stifling heat of London, had chosen this secluded corner for what he termed a restorative interlude. His compact frame, clad in a lightweight linen suit that somehow remained impeccably creased, moved with deliberate elegance along the cliff path. At his side, Captain Arthur Hastings ambled with his usual easy stride, his Panama hat tilted against the glare, a walking stick swinging like a conductor's baton. "Poirot, old fellow," Hastings said, mopping his brow with a handkerchief. "This is the life. No puzzles, no villains, just sea air and sunshine. Though I must say, that hotel of yours is a bit quaint." The majestic hotel perched on the headland like a grand dame surveying her domain, its white facade gleaming, verandas overflowing with wicker chairs where guests sipped iced drinks and gossiped about the latest scandals. Poirot's moustache twitched in amusement. "Quaint, Hastings. It is perfection. The view sublime, the cuisine tolerable, and the company most intriguing." Their stroll led them past End House, a rambling estate teetering on the cliff's edge, its once grand architecture now weathered by salt winds, ivy clawing up its walls like possessive fingers. A young woman lounged on the terrace, her laughter floating down like musical notes. Nick Buckley, the house's eccentric owner, known for her wild parties and devil-may-care attitude. She waved lazily as they approached. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain, come join me for a cocktail. The view's divine, and the gin even better." Poirot bowed slightly, his green eyes appraising. "Mademoiselle Buckley, a pleasure. Your home. It has character." Nick grinned, her short bob haircut framing a face alive with mischief, her dress a swirl of bright silk that caught the breeze like a sail. "Character. It's falling apart, but I love it. Accidents happen here all the time. Loose tiles, faulty brakes on my car. Life's too short for caution." Hastings chuckled. "Sounds adventurous. Any close calls lately?" Nick's laugh was light, but her eyes flickered. "Oh, plenty. A boulder nearly rolled over me yesterday on the path. Probably erosion. And a wasp sting last week, swelled up like a balloon. Clumsy me." Their conversation meandered like the cliff path, Nick's tales of bohemian friends, Poirot's anecdotes from Parisian cafes, but Miss Marple's, no. Poirot's intuition prickled, like the sea breeze on skin. "Accidents, mademoiselle, or design?" Nick waved it off. "Design. I'm not that important, though my cousin Maggie's been nagging about the will. Says End House should be hers. Family drama, you know." Hastings leaned in. Will, you're young for such talk. Nick shrugged. Rich uncle left it to me. With conditions, but enough gloom. Let's toast to perils avoided. As they sipped gin fizzes on the terrace, the sun dipping toward the horizon in a blaze of orange and purple, a sharp crack echoed from the cliffs. A gunshot. Nick's hat flew off, a bullet grazing the brim, embedding in the wall behind with a thud. She froze, then laughed shakily. See, accidents. But Poirot's face was grave, his gloved hand retrieving the hat, a singed hole stark against the fabric. No accident, mademoiselle. Attempted murder. Hastings sprang up. The shooter from the path below. They rushed to the edge, but the cliffs revealed only waves crashing like applause for a vanished act. Back on the terrace, Nick's bravado cracked slightly, her hands trembling as she lit a cigarette. Who would want me dead? I'm harmless. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Harmless? Or heir to something coveted? Tell me of your circle. Nick exhaled smoke like a veil. Friends, Freddie Rice, lively but broke, Jim Lazarus, art dealer with shady deals, my cousin Charles Vyse, lawyer type, always scheming, and Maggie, my cousin, jealous but harmless. Hastings frowned. Jealousy breeds danger. Poirot nodded. Danger, yes. We must vigilant. As dusk deepened, the sea turning inky, a delivery boy arrived panting, a note in hand. For Miss Buckley, urgent. She opened it, her face paling. The paper was smeared with what looked like blood. Words scrawled. Your sins catch up. End at End House. Nick dropped it, the stain spreading like an accusation. Poirot snatched it up, his nose wrinkling. Blood? No. The scent is paint, theatrical crimson. A threat, but fabricated to terrify. Hastings examined. Fresh, delivered moments ago. The boy? But the lad had vanished into the twilight. Poirot's mind whirred, piecing fragments. The bullet's trajectory from below, the note's timely arrival. The accidents escalating. A pattern, mademoiselle. Someone stages peril to mask intent. Nick's laugh was forced. Intent. To scare me off my own cliff. Their discussion turned to safeguards. Locking gates, alerting police. But Poirot insisted on staying the night. Peril lurks, but so does Poirot. As stars pricked the velvet sky, the house settled into uneasy quiet, waves a constant murmur below. Poirot and Hastings patrolled the grounds, lanterns bobbing like fireflies. Odd, Poirot, Hastings said. Nick seems nonchalant. Poirot's moustache twitched. Nonchalance as armor, mon ami, but cracks show. Their vigil yielded nothing but sea wind, but dawn brought calm, the household stirring to birdsong, Nick brewing coffee with shaky hands. Poirot addressed them over breakfast on the terrace, the sun rising like a promise. The note's paint from a local theatre, the bullet fired from a rifle, not pistol, a setup, but why? Nick's friends arrived, Freddie Bubbly, Charles Stern. Their alibis probed. I was painting, Freddie claimed. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Painting, with crimson. But her palette showed fresh red, unmatched to the note. Cleared, for now, he conceded, the group exhaling. A momentary shield descended, security bolstered, suspicions tempered. Hastings clapped Poirot's back. You've steadied the ship. The detective gazed at the cliffs. Steadied, yes, but the bloody tendrils creep. A sanctuary shadowed, peril inviting us deeper. The Cornish sun climbed, waves glittering below. Poirot's watch began, the chapter's threats bridged, dynamic intrigues whispering toward the cliff's edge. Chapter 2, whispers of the cliff dawn crept over the Cornish horizon like a hesitant artist dipping a brush into gold, painting the cliffs in warm hues that chased away the night's lingering chill. The sea below murmured its eternal secrets, waves lapping at the rocks with a rhythm that spoke of hidden depths and forgotten tales. Hercule Poirot, having spent a restless night at the majestic hotel, rose early, his routine a bastion against uncertainty, a precise shave, a meticulously knotted tie, and a breakfast of café au lait with croissants that, while not Parisian, sufficed. Captain Hastings joined him on the veranda, his newspaper folded under his arm, his face alight with the morning's freshness. "Poirot, that shot yesterday. Dashed queer. Nick seems unflappable, but I smell trouble." Poirot's green eyes scanned the path to End House, visible from their vantage like a sentinel on the brink. "Trouble, Hastings. It perfumes the air like salt spray. We visit Mademoiselle Buckley. Her accidents are symphonies of intent." Their walk along the cliff trail was invigorating, the wind tugging at hats and coats, gulls soaring overhead like vigilant spies. End House loomed closer, its weathered stones whispering of bygone grandeur, gardens overgrown with wild roses that clambered like eager intruders over trellises. Nick Buckley greeted them at the door, her energy undimmed, clad in a breezy sundress that fluttered like a flag of defiance. "Gentlemen, back so soon. Come in. The coffee's hot, and Maggie's just arrived." Inside, the drawing room was a haven of faded elegance, sun-faded chintz sofas, a grand piano gathering dust, and French doors open to the sea's symphony. Maggie Buckley, Nick's cousin, was a contrast, prim in a tailored suit, her hair pinned severely, her eyes sharp as the cliff's edge. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, extending a hand cool as marble. "Nick's told me of yesterday's excitement. Alarming, but she's always been reckless." Their conversation flowed like the tide, Nick regaling with tales of cliff walks and midnight swims, Maggie interjecting with cautions about the house's decay. "The wiring's ancient, fires waiting to happen," she warned. Hastings leaned forward. "And the family curse. Local law mentions it." Nick laughed, but Maggie's face tightened. "Superstition. Our great-uncle died mysteriously. Homicide, some say, over a disputed will. But that's ancient history." Poirot's moustache quivered. "History echoes, mademoiselle. Whispers of a slain ancestor. Poisoned, perhaps." As they sipped coffee on the terrace, the cliff's whispers grew literal. A low murmur from below the balustrade. Poirot peered over, the drop sheer to jagged rocks where waves foamed like rabid mouths. Someone below. Hastings ventured down the path, returning breathless. Footprints, fresh, leading to a cove. Nick shivered. Smuggler's old haunt, legends of treasures hidden there. Their exploration led to the cliff base, a narrow trail winding like a serpent's spine, sea spray misting their faces like veils of secrecy. The cove was a hidden gem, sandy inlet framed by caves that gaped like dark maws. Inside one, damp walls glistened, echoes amplifying their steps. Poirot's lantern revealed etchings, old runes, perhaps smugglers' codes. "Intriguing," he murmured. A glint caught his eye, a bloody glove wedged in a crevice, fabric torn as if in struggle. "Fresh," Hastings said, recoiling from the stain. Nick paled. "Blood? But whose?" Poirot examined. "Not blood. Red dye, thick as paint. A plant to mislead." Maggie scoffed. "Theatrical nonsense. Probably kids playing pirates." Their return ascent was tense, the cliff's whispers now seeming like warnings. Back at End House, Freddie Rice arrived, a vivacious friend of Nick's, her laughter a burst of colour in the sombre air. "Darlings, heard about the shot, thrilling, like a novel." Her arrival sparked lighter chatter, but Poirot probed. "Mademoiselle Rice, you know the house well. Any secrets in its walls? Freddie's eyes twinkled. Secrets? End house is full. Hidden panels from smuggling days. Nick and I played there as girls. Their demonstration revealed a concealed drawer in the piano, empty but for dust. As lunch approached, fresh seafood from the village, Charles Weiss, Nick's cousin and lawyer, joined them, his briefcase a constant companion. Legal matters, he explained, his voice smooth as oiled wood. The estate's in disarray, debts mounting. Nick waved it off. Boring talk. Let's picnic on the cliff. Their outing was idyllic. Baskets unpacked on a rug, the sea a glittering expanse below. But whispers persisted. Freddie's voice low to Nick about rival suitors. Charles's hushed aside to Maggie about poisoned wills. Tensions mounted when a second note appeared in the basket, smeared with crimson, reading, "The curse claims its due. End at the edge." Nick dropped it, the stain spreading like an omen. Poirot snatched it. Die again. But the paper from Weiss's briefcase stock. Charles protested. Impossible. I draft wills, not threats. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Wills poisoned by greed. The ancestor, slain over inheritance. Their confessions trickled. Freddie's rivalry for Nick's affections with a mysterious admirer. Charles's evasive hints at a tainted family legacy. The chapter peaked with a cliffside scare. A loose rock tumbling, nearly sweeping Freddie over the edge. Poirot's quick grab saved her, the rock's dislodgement revealing tampering. Wire cuts. Intentional, he declared. But tracing the wire to a garden tool cleared Maggie, her alibi solid with the cook. Not you, mademoiselle. Rest easy. A brief veil of trust descended. Picnic resumed, laughter tentative but genuine. As sun waned, casting long shadows like fingers pointing accusations, a fragile order knit the group. Hastings marveled. You've steadied us, Poirot. The detective gazed at the sea. Steadied, yes, but the bloody tendrils creep, a sanctuary shadowed deeper. The Cornish dusk settled, waves murmuring below. Poirot's inquiry deepened, the chapter's whispers bridged, dynamic perils whispering toward fatal masquerades. Word count, 1028. Control, 12. Chapter 4. Poisoned alliances. The midday sun beat down on End House like a relentless interrogator, turning the terrace stones hot underfoot and casting shadows that slithered across the flagstones like treacherous allies. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the salty bite of the sea mingled with the sweet decay of overripe roses climbing the walls. Hercule Poirot had convened the household in the drawing room, a space where sunlight streamed through French doors, illuminating dust motes that danced like unspoken suspicions in the stale air. The room's faded grandeur, threadbare rugs, a chandelier dulled by salt mist, mirrored the fractured bonds among those gathered. Nick Buckley, lounging with feigned nonchalance on a chaise. Freddie Rice, her vivacity tempered by a nervous tick in her fingers. Maggie Buckley, perched rigidly like a bird ready to flee. And Charles Weiss, his briefcase open on his lap, papers rustling like dry leaves in a breeze. Captain Hastings stood by the window, his walking stick tapping an impatient rhythm. Poirot, this heat's unbearable, much like the tension. Yesterday's rockfall was no accident. Poirot, his linen suit impeccable despite the warmth, nodded from his armchair. Unbearable, yes, but heat forges alliances, or melts them. Mes amis, we delve into pacts poisoned by ambition. Their conversation ignited slowly, like a fuse smoldering in dry grass. Nick lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke like a veil. Pacts, like Freddie and I, sisters in mischief, but poison, That's dramatic. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Drama reveals truth. Mademoiselle Rice, your alliance with Nick, rooted in affection or something sharper. Freddie's laugh was brittle, her fingers twisting a ring. Affection, of course. We've shared secrets since girlhood. End houses, hidden nooks, midnight escapades, but lately, whispers of rivals. Maggie interjected, her voice tight. Rivals, like that admirer sending anonymous gifts, jewels with a sinister glint. Charles cleared his throat, shuffling papers. Gifts or bribes, the estate's debts mount, alliances form to salvage it. The revelations began to flow, alliances souring like wine left in the sun. Poirot probed gently. Salvage through what means, Monsieur Weiss? Your legal pacts, with financiers perhaps. Charles's pen tapped erratically. Financiers. 1. Lazarus, an art dealer with shady ties. We allied to appraise End House's relics, old family heirlooms cursed, they say. Freddie's eyes widened. Cursed, like the ancestors' poison ring, lost, but whispered to bring death. Maggie leaned forward. Death. Our great-uncle's homicide, poisoned chalice at a banquet. The ring vanished then. Their confessions interlocked like chains in a dungeon. Freddie's alliance with a mysterious suitor to pressure Nick into selling. Maggie's pact with Charles to contest the will, tainted by envy of Nick's inheritance. Charles's bond with Lazarus for undervaluing assets to force a sale. Alliances poisoned by greed, Poirot mused, like venom in a vial, subtle but lethal. Miss Marple, no, Poirot directed with precise gestures. Let us unearth the roots in the attic where whispers hide. The stairs creaked under their ascent, the air growing musty with dust and forgotten time. The attic was a labyrinth of trunks and cobwebs, lantern light piercing the gloom like accusations. Poirot's beam fell on a shrouded form, a dummy rigged with wires, its limbs articulated to mimic a lurking figure, a gramophone horn hidden in its chest. Behold the phantom of the cliffs, Poirot announced, activating a lever. The dummy jerked to life, wires pulling it into eerie motion, whispers emanating, fragmented threats echoing the note's malice. Freddie gasped. From my theatre days, props I lent Nick for fun. Maggie pointed. You rigged it to scare her into selling. Under Poirot's gaze, Freddie crumbled. Yes, I enabled the haunts, supplied the wires for leverage, but the shots, not me, I abetted, didn't aim. The guard, summoned from the hotel, stepped forward. Enabling Peril's crime enough. Handcuffs clicked. Freddie's wrists bound as confessions poured. The alliances fractured, each roll in the web exposed. We sought the estate, she murmured, but it twisted into this. Downstairs, the drawing room exhaled as she was led away, the rain beginning to patter like applause, deceptions shattered like sun-baked clay. Maggie embraced Nick in reconciliation, their pact dissolved. Charles surrendered his papers to Poirot's scrutiny, truce hemorrhaging. Hastings marveled. Alliances mended Poirot. The detective regarded the sea. Mended, but scarred. The poison lingers, a stroke for the final reckoning. The Cornish rain fell, waves murmuring below. Poirot's inquiry deepened, the chapter's fractures bridged, dynamic perils whispering toward Peril's reckoning. Chapter 3. The deadly derailment. The train sliced through the pre-dawn gloom like a blade through silk, its headlamp piercing the fog-shrouded countryside in fleeting glimpses of hedgerows and sleeping villages. Inside, the carriages rocked with a hypnotic cadence, but the illusion of peace was as fragile as frost on a window pane. Miss Jane Marple had claimed a nook in the observation car, her shawl wrapped tight against the chill seeping from the glass dome above. where stars winked mockingly through patches of clearing sky. Lucy Isles Barrow dozed fitfully nearby, her head against the velvet seat, notebook slipping from her lap. The night's whispers had left an indelible mark, a sense of eyes watching from every shadow, every creak, a potential harbinger. Miss Marple's mind, however, was a whirlwind of activity, piecing the puzzle's jagged edges, the forged note's ink, the smuggled relic's gleam, the alliances fraying like overtaxed ropes. "We must act before the next station," she murmured to herself, rising with a quiet rustle. The corridor awaited, a dimly lit passage where brass lamps swayed like pendulums, casting elongated shadows that danced with the train's motion. She moved toward the baggage car, Lucy stirring to join her, their footsteps a soft counterpoint to the wheel's thunder. The baggage car was a cavern of stacked trunks and crates, the air dense with the musty odor of leather and wood polish, undercut by a faint, exotic spice, perhaps from Thorne's ill-gotten artifacts. Miss Marple's lantern cut through the dimness, revealing the loose panel they had discovered earlier, now secured with a makeshift lock. "Tampered again," Lucy whispered, her fingers tracing fresh scratches on the brass. Miss Marple nodded. "Eyes everywhere. But let's map the motives. Smuggling rings leave trails." Their inspection yielded a crumpled map tucked behind a valise, yellowed paper etched with route snaking through wartime Europe, marked with symbols of poison vials and daggers. "Blueprints for derailment," Miss Marple observed, her voice a thread of steel. "Not just cargo, but a network of betrayal." Lucy's eyes widened. "Thorne at the center." The sleuth folded the map. "A hub, yes. Spokes radiating to our suspects." Returning to the lounge car, they found the others already stirring. The guard yawning as he checked his watch, Elias Crowe polishing his badge with mechanical fervor, Lady Vanessa Hargrove applying lipstick with a compact mirror that reflected the dawn's blush, and Raoul Duval hunched over his sketchbook, his pencil flying in furious arcs. "Couldn't sleep," Duval grumbled, his drawing revealing a chaotic swirl of train cars and shadowy figures. "The motion inspires, or haunts." Lady Hargrove snapped her compact shut. "Haunts? After last night's farce? We're prisoners on this iron beast." Miss Marple seized the moment, her voice cutting through the grumbles. "Prisoners, or participants in a deadly game. Let us convene. Breakfast can wait. Truce cannot." They gathered around a low table, the steward providing tepid coffee that steamed like warnings. The alliances began to poison the air, words laced with barbs. Miss Marple guided with subtle prompts. "Games have rules and cheaters. Lady Hargrove, you're packed with Thorne, soured by those relics." Vanessa's lipstick left a crimson smear on her cup. "Packed, a brittle accord. We bid on a Cairo trove, but he deceived me, pocketing the lot. Those artifacts, amulets with toxins, blades cursed, lethal if mishandled." Crowe's badge glinted. "Mishandled. I ferried similar in the war, for clients like Thorne. Alliances then were tenuous, one slip and ruin." Duval's pencil paused. "Ruin. My gallery fell to Thorne's fakes, relics forged to flood the market. I vowed reprisal, but through exposure, not force." Their admissions interwove. Hargrove's hushed oath to reclaim the relics via enigmatic brokers. Crowe's bond with a clandestine railway syndicate. Thorne, a defector who pocketed profits. Duval's compact with a competing curator to discredit Thorne's hoard. His illustration schematics for unveiling frauds. Miss Marple set her cup down with deliberate care. Compacts seal fates, tainted by covetousness. But let's excavate the origins. She proposed a probe of the undercarriage at the forthcoming brief pause, a coaling stop in a quaint glen, the train idling like a slumbering colossus. They alighted under the guard's watchful scrutiny, the platform a ribbon of timber amid verdant vales resonant with avian melodies. The undercarriage was a grimy labyrinth of pipes and axles, the air dense with oil and rust. Miss Marple's lantern sliced the obscurity, highlighting a loose panel, forcibly breached, its clasps distorted. "Violated," she proclaimed. Within, cradled among satins, rested an elaborate phial, the elixir luminous, a stiletto adjacent, etched with primordial glyphs. Crow's pipe tumbled, Thorn's trove, stashed herein. Lady Hargrove extended toward the phial. "This distillate, atropine foundation, mortal in murmurs." Duval's tone honed. "You identified. Your compact with him, to vend these." Indictments blazed, Crow imputing Hargrove with embedding them to ensnare him, Hargrove rebutting with Duval's inventive counterfeits as venom conduits, Duval countering with Crow's conflict-era ingress as the trafficking artery. Tensions ascended as the train hooted, recommencement, corralling them back within. In the lounge, the disclosures seethed. Crow conceding to transporting the trove for Thorn, but repudiating modification. Hargrove acknowledging a contaminated oath to subvert his bargains. Duval divulging a scarlet compact with a Gallic craftsman for retribution. "We amalgamated transiently," Duval permitted, "to dismantle him, but it soured when Thorn imperiled us all." Miss Marple's needles ceased. "Soured into manslaughter. The stiletto's bane conforms to the vestige on Thorn's laceration, insidious if abraded." The assembly recoiled, compacts disintegrating. The guard progressed. "Restrain yourselves." But Miss Marple disclosed a mannequin in the freight, cabled to emulate a skulking contour, its apparatuses connected to the freight hasp. A stratagem to intimidate Thorn into divulgence. "Your handiwork, Mr. Crow." He wilted. I facilitated the haunts, furnished the appurtenances for coercion, but the lunge, not mine. I abetted, didn't perpetrate." The constabulary at Exeter would arbitrate, but presently Crow's detention as facilitator assuaged the paranoia. His manacles a termination to the chapter's commotion. Hargrove and Duval traded glances of hesitant concord, verities hemorrhaging like pigment from a fractured stylus. Lucy respired. Pacts reformed in rupture. Miss Marple regarded the illuminating vista. Reformed, yet blemished. The bane persists. A stroke for the conclusive admission. The tracks bellowed onward. The chapter's fissures mended. Dynamic disclosures propelling toward fatal advent. Chapter 4. Poisoned alliances. The train's ceaseless rumble had evolved into a comforting drone by the time the first hints of dawn crept through the fogged windows, turning the lounge car into a hazy sanctuary where exhaustion and suspicion intertwined like vines on an ancient trellis. Miss Jane Marple had claimed a corner booth, her shawl a makeshift blanket over her knees, her eyes half closed but her mind a whirlwind of connections. Alliances forged in shadows, now cracking under the weight of their own deceit. Lucy Isles Barrow slumbered fitfully opposite, her head against the velvet cushion, notebook clutched like a talisman. The air was stale, laced with the remnants of spilled coffee and the faint, metallic tang of fear that no amount of ventilation could dispel. Miss Marple rose as the sky lightened, her movements deliberate to avoid disturbing the others. Elias Crow, the conductor, snoring softly in an armchair, his pipe extinguished on the table. Lady Vanessa Hargrove, her head tilted against the window, pearls gleaming like dewdrops in the dim light. Raoul Duval, sprawled with his sketchbook open on his chest, charcoal lines smudged across his cheek like war paint. "The dawn exposes," she murmured to herself, slipping into the corridor where the brass lamps cast long, wavering shadows that danced with the train's sway. The journey to Exeter stretched ahead, but time was a thief. Alliances could poison further, if not last. Lucy stirred, joining her with a yawn. "Aunt Jane, you didn't sleep. The guard's due to check soon." Miss Marple's smile was faint. "Sleep is for the unburdened, dear. We must gather them. Let the morning light strip away nocturnal masks." Their invitations were subtle. Knocks on compartment doors, whispers requesting a dawn assembly for safety's sake. The lounge filled gradually, the steward rousing to provide fresh tea and biscuits, the aroma a welcome antidote to the night's stagnation. They assembled around the central table, a circle of wariness illuminated by the rising sun that painted the car in soft golds. Crow rubbed his eyes. His uniform creased. Another council. We're prisoners on this rattling coffin. Hargrove adjusted her pearls, her voice crisp. Prisoners, with a killer loose. I'd rather alliance than isolation. Duval flipped his sketchbook, his pencil already dancing. Alliance, like Thorne's deals, sweet at first, sour in the swallow. The guard loomed at the door, his whistle a silent threat. Miss Marple dispensed the tea, the steam rising like veils lifting. Sourness reveals character. Mr. Crow, your wartime pacts, ferrying relics for Thorne, but alliances shift like sands. Crow's pipe remained unlit, his fingers drumming. Shift. Thorne promised shares, then pocketed all. Our syndicate fractured. I was left with scraps. Hargrove's pearls clicked. Scraps. Like my bid on the Cairo lot. He undercut me, claimed the treasures. Those artifacts. Phials of essence, blades with maledictions. Fatal if tampered. Duval's lines sharpened. Tampered. Thorne enticed me with documentation, then dismissed my work as archaic scratches. The packs began to fester, utterances leaking like toxin from a cracked seal. Miss Marple navigated with delicate inquiries. Dismissals breed bitterness. Lady Hargrove, your transactions with Thorne, corrupted by those treasures. Vanessa's saucer rattled. Transactions? A tenuous accord. We tendered for an Alexandria cache, but he betrayed me, hoarding the bounty. Those relics, scarabs with poisons, daggers graven with hexes, deadly if mishandled. Crow's ember flared as he lit his pipe. Mishandled. I transported a kin in the conflict for clients like Thorne. Bonds then were fragile, one misstep and downfall. Duval's strokes intensified. Downfall. My studio collapsed under Thorne's counterfeits, relics fabricated to saturate the bazaar. I pledged retaliation, but via unmasking, not ferocity. Their disclosures meshed like gears in a malevolent mechanism. Hargrove's covert vow to recapture the relics through enigmatic agents. Crow's linkage with a covert railway coalition. Thorne, a deserter who embezzled earnings. Duval's compact with a competing guardian to debunk Thorne's hoard. His illustrations blueprints for revealing frauds. Miss Marple placed her cup down with purposeful resonance. Compacts bind, destinies, tainted by covetousness. But let's exhume the foundations. She advocated an exploration of the caboose at the forthcoming brief pause, a coaling stop in a picturesque glen, the train idling like a slumbering colossus. They alighted under the guard's watchful scrutiny, the platform a ribbon of timber amid verdant vales resonant with avian melodies. The caboose was a repository of heaped portmanteaus, the atmosphere dense with hide and antiquity. Miss Marple's lantern sliced the obscurity, highlighting Hargrove's coffer, forcibly breached, its clasps distorted. "Violated," she proclaimed. Within, cradled among satins, rested an elaborate phial, the elixir luminous, a stiletto adjacent, etched with primordial glyphs. Crow's pipe tumbled. Thorn's trove stashed herein. Lady Hargrove extended toward the phial. This distillate, atropine foundation, mortal in murmurs. Duval's tone honed. "You identified. You're compact with him. To vend these." Indictments blazed like beacon fires, Crow imputing Hargrove, with embedding them to ensnare him. Hargrove rebutting with Duval's inventive counterfeits as venom conduits, Duval countering with Crow's conflict-era ingress as the trafficking artery. Tensions ascended as the train hooted recommencement, corralling them back within. In the lounge, the disclosures seethed. Crow conceding to transporting the trove for Thorn, but repudiating modification. Hargrove acknowledging a contaminated oath to subvert his bargains. Duval divulging a scarlet compact with a Gallic craftsman for retribution. "We amalgamated transiently," Duval permitted, "to dismantle him, but it soured when Thorn imperiled us all." Miss Marple's needles ceased. Soured into manslaughter, the stiletto's bane conforms to the vestige on Thorn's laceration, insidious if abraded. The assembly recoiled, compacts disintegrating. The guard progressed. "Restrain yourselves." But Miss Marple disclosed a mannequin in the freight, cabled to emulate a skulking contour, its apparatuses connected to the freight hasp. A stratagem to intimidate Thorn into divulgence. "Your handiwork, Mr. Duval." He wilted. I facilitated the haunts, furnished the appurtenances for coercion. But the lunge, not mine. I abetted, didn't perpetrate. The constabulary at Exeter would arbitrate, but presently Duval's detention as facilitator assuaged the paranoia, his manacles a termination to the chapter's commotion. Hargrove and Crow traded glances of hesitant concord, verities hemorrhaging like pigment from a fractured stylus. Lucy respired. Pax reformed in rupture. Miss Marple regarded the illuminating vista. Reformed, yet blemished. The bane persists. A stroke for the conclusive admission. The tracks bellowed onward. The chapter's fissures mended, dynamic disclosures propelling toward fatal advent. Chapter 5. The fatal arrival. The train pulled into Exeter Station with a final laboured sigh, its brakes screeching like a lament for the secrets it had carried through the night. The platform emerged from the pre-dawn mist like a stage set for the grand finale. Gas lamps flickering in the fog, casting halos that blurred the boundaries between shadow and substance. Porters bustled with trolleys that rattled over the cobblestones, their calls echoing in the cavernous space, while distant church bells tolled the hour like a summons to judgment. Miss Jane Marple descended the steps with measured grace, her valise a steadfast companion, the weight of unravelling deceptions far heavier than its contents. Lucy Eilers-Barrow followed, her notebook tucked away, her face a blend of weariness and anticipation as she scanned the waiting constables, sturdy figures in dark uniforms, their lanterns swinging like pendulums marking the end of the line. The dwindled passengers gathered on the platform, a ragged assembly under the arched roof where pigeons cooed from the rafters like unseen witnesses. Elias Crow, the conductor, slumped against a pillar, his uniform dishevelled, pipe unlit in his hand. Lady Vanessa Hargrove clutched her lapdog's basket, her silk scarf a defiant splash of colour against the grey dawn. Raoul Duval lingered at the edge, his sketchbook closed, charcoal dust still smudged on his fingers like remnants of erased alibis. The guard herded them together, his whistle a sharp note of authority. "Police here, stay put." But Miss Marple raised her hand, her voice slicing through the murmurs like a gentle current parting reeds. "A moment, please. The stars fade, but truths dawn. Let us conclude under this vaulted sky, where arrivals seal fates." They complied, forming a loose circle on the platform's worn stones, the mist swirling around their ankles like ethereal chains. The night air whispered through the station's arches, carrying fragments of the world beyond, a child's distant laugh, a vendor's muffled call, like reminders of lives untouched by their ordeal. Miss Marple began, her tone a serene cascade flowing toward inevitable resolution. "We alight not merely at a station, but at destiny's threshold. The killer's locomotive, a rolling trap for covetousness, has reached its end. No more veils or tamperings, only the lucid ring of closure." She interlaced the ominous strands with artful precision, her words crafting the mosaic afresh. "The summons that drew me aboard, a fabricated beacon, inked not by Lucy, but by one who foresaw turmoil as camouflage. Sir Reginald Thorne's demise, a pierce not of impulse, but orchestrated to seize an unmerited bequest." Crow shifted, his pipe forgotten, but the pacts, we owned our roles. Miss Marple inclined her head. "Owned, yes, as facilitators, not the maestro. The tainted coalitions of envy, the concealed niches teeming with accursed relics, all diversions from the fundamental toxin." Her gaze fixed on Lady Vanessa Hargrove, who straightened, her brooch catching a lamp's beam like a rebellious spark. "Lady Vanessa, or should I address Vanessa Thorne, the unrecognized lineage?" The platform silenced, the distant bells ceasing as if in deference. Hargrove's lapdog whimpered faintly. "Absurd. Hargrove by matrimony." Miss Marple's smile held compassion, laced with resolve. "Matrimony, yes, but to a remote kin, veiling your consanguinity to Thorne. The disregarded locket in your canine's bedding, incised with crimson initials, VT for Vanessa Thorne, a keepsake from your perished aunt, whose estate Thorne usurped." The assembly drew breath sharply. Duval's sketchbook slipped open unwittingly. "Her incentive?" Miss Marple proceeded, her voice threading the narrative like a loom's shuttle. "Ambition voracious, anchored in a vendetta for that aunt, envenomed subtly at a familial assembly, deemed malady but suspected villainy. You wed into the fold for vengeance, bided seasons as the fortune swelled, the slaying, a facade of strife, the stiletto from your secreted hoard, imbued with belladonna to assure lethality even from a nick." Lucy inhaled softly. "The relics, your trafficking," Miss Marple affirmed. "A veneer to inculpate others, Crow's web, Duval's counterfeits, all marionettes in your scheme to inherit, unchallenged." Hargrove's facade held, her voice a venomous murmur cutting the mist. "Fantasies, substantiated." Miss Marple withdrew the locket from her reticule, a dainty gold artifact, its interior faintly discolored crimson. "This, salvaged from your hound's nest amid the tumult. The incisions align with Thorne's testament papers. Your assertion quelled. The thrust, disguised as tussle, the blade from your occult cache laced with toxin." The group recoiled. Crow muttered, "The haunts, your orchestration." Miss Marple nodded. "A ploy to unnerve Thorne into susceptibility, allied with enablers, but your hand pulled the cords." Hargrove's facade fractured, her voice a hoarse torrent. "Susceptibility, deserved. Thorne pilfered my aunt's legacy, envenomed her with those essences to seize it. I endured, forged bonds to infiltrate, awaited the opportune voyage, the train, a masterful snare, summon scrutiny with a shriek, derail to obliterate traces. Admissions cascaded, a deluge unstemmed. The coalitions corrupted to fabricate alibis, the dummy spectres to erode Thorne's resolve, the breaks manipulated to mute inquisitive voices. Propelled by fatal fixation, equity soured into avarice, phantoms exacting blood. The constables advanced then, their boots resounding on the platform like fate's cadence, uniformed silhouettes materializing from the station's murk, guided by a resolute inspector with a ledger poised. Lady Hargrove, you're detained for Sir Reginald Thorne's homicide, plus endeavoured derailment and falsification. Manacles shimmered in the lamplight, snapping with conclusiveness around her wrists. She cast a final penetrating glance at the assembly. Crow's inclined head, Duval's agape mouth, Lucy's resolute stare. Ere being escorted away, her footfalls diminishing into the night's embrace like a withdrawing wraith. In the subsequent hush, relief flourished like dawn's initial blossoms. Crow proffered a hand to Duval. Bonds severed, yet perchance reforged in verity. The artist grasped it, his sketchbook unveiling a pristine leaf, a novel canvas, sans maledictions. Lucy embraced Miss Marple. Aunt Jane, you've navigated us to secure haven. The detective adjusted her shawl, regarding the stellar vault. Haven, yes, with no tempest persisting. The terminus purged, voyages renewed. They tarried on the platform as porters unloaded, dialogues shifting from hazard to schemes, Crow pledging honest tracks henceforth, Duval delineating the dawn's pledge, Lucy coordinating onward sojourns. The inspector clasped Miss Marple's hand. Your discernment, ma'am, Scotland Yard's covert. She beamed modestly, merely motifs discerned, Inspector. Human frailty interlaces them, watchfulness disentangles. As the ensemble dispersed, into cabs and awaiting arms, the station animated to vitality, whistles penetrating the air like victorious notes. Miss Marple embarked on a local linkage, her valise buoyant, the narrative sealed in resolute serenity. No conundrums unresolved, solely the tender victory of scrutiny over iniquity, the fatal advent eternally interred.